In this video, we're going to graph the sine and cosine functions, but before that, let's go ahead and write down the equation of the unit circle. The equation is x squared plus y squared equals 1. It is also a good idea to draw the unit circle if we're graphing the sine function, let's say for the first time. And I'm gonna assume this is a perfect circle. I know it's not, but let's just assume it is. So now for the x value, we have a 0 and 1 over here on this point. Over here we have 1, 0. At this point we have 0 and negative 1. And this point we have negative 1 and 0. Okay, what else we need to know is that the circle starts at this point, and this point is gonna be 0, and when we go one whole rotation around the circle, we're gonna end up at 2 pi. So basically one period around the circle is 2 pi. Now let's write down other values on the unit circle. So we already have 2 pi. If we split 2 pi, if I take 2 pi and divide by 2, I'm going to get a pi. So this point is a pi. If we take the pi and divide by 2, we are going to get pi over 2, which is this point. And now we have a pi over 2, 2 pi over 2. This point is going to be 3 pi over 2. And 4 pi over 2 is going to be 2 pi. So again, if I have 4 pi over 2, that equals 2 pi. Okay, so now let's look at the graphing. I'm going to draw a line here. 0. Our amplitude for graphing sine is 1. So the highest point on a circle is 1. The amplitude is 1, but the highest point is 1 and the lowest point is negative 1. And again, amplitude is basically the absolute value. Okay, so if this was let's say, if the number in front of sine was, let's say, negative 3, then we would have amplitude of absolute value negative 3, which would be 3. So in this case, the amplitude is absolute value of 1, which equals 1 because the number here is invisible 1. Okay, and then also we know that the graph starts at 0 and goes one period around the circle, which is up to 2 pi. And the values between is going to be pi over 2, pi, and 3 pi over 2, and then 2 pi. So now how would we graph? Or sometimes my students are asking me why sine function starts at 0 and cosine function starts at 1. So I'm gonna show that. Now we need to understand also that the x value here, that's a cosine, and y value is sine. So let me write it down again. So cosine is x and sine is gonna be y. Okay, so cosine of t or sine of t is gonna be y. And now if you start at this point and go around the circle, and we are graphing sine function, we're gonna start at a 0. And as we're moving around the circle, the next point at pi over 2, the sine is 1. So we go from 0 to pi over 2, the sine is 1. Then we continue moving towards pi, the sine is going to be 0 again. So we're gonna go down, and then as we're moving around the circle now, the sine is negative 1. Notice that at 3 pi over 2, the sine is negative 1, and we go back to the starting point, and at 2 pi, the sine is 0 again. Okay, so as you can see, the sine function are the y values. And the function goes 0, positive 1, 0, negative 1. Okay, 0, positive 1, 0, negative 1, and back to 0. Now the cosine function, let me draw line here. The key points or steps, x-intercepts, well, they are not all x-intercepts, are gonna be the same. I would call them the key points are the same, which is pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And now since we are graphing the cosine function, oops, I forgot the amplitude. So here is 1, the lowest point is -1. So the cosine function, again, we're gonna start, cosine starts at 1. So we're gonna start at 1 over here. And as we go to pi over 2, now the cosine is gonna be 0. We're gonna move to pi. At pi, the cosine is -1. Keep moving. At 3 pi over 2, the cosine is 0. And then after completes the full rotation, at 2 pi, the cosine is actually at 1. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to write this nice curve, okay? I see sometimes students, instead of trying to kind of continue and writing it this way, what I see students sometimes doing, they draw this one period and then they kind of extend the line a little bit. So this is one of the misconceptions, that the function continues. The function is periodic. That means that it does continue, but not up or down, but it just goes more periods the same. So it would go back, look something like this, and so on, okay? I'm gonna show different kinds of varieties of sine and cosine functions in another video, but I wanna also mention that if we have to graph the function as a, let's say, f of x equals negative sine x, if there is a negative, what we're gonna do is, that means that we are going opposite direction. So we're gonna start here and we're going in a circle clockwise, and the function would look something like that. We would start at 0, but we go down to -1, back to 0, +1, and back to 0. So this one would be the negative sine of x function. I'm gonna write it in this color. And for cosine, again, we would start at -1, go up over here, and then we would end up at -1 again, and it would look something like this, okay? So I hope this was helpful to understand the basics, sine of x and cosine x functions. Let me know if you have any questions, or if there are any other functions you would like me to graph and or explain. Thank you for watching.